Well, hello and good morning, everyone. I'm Russell Palmer and the Assistant Director for Galileo Support Services. And I've had the pleasure, as Joy mentioned, of working with and getting to know many of you. And we're just so proud of the work that we've been able to do for you on Galileo over the past few years. And one of our goals has been to really make it much easier for institutions and soon for our end users to customize their Galileo experience. And I probably went a little overboard. I was actually in the mindset of thinking about actually hacking some Galileo applications. And there are some actual, sort of informal ways to hack Galileo, if you will. Some of our libraries have hacked, for example, the Galileo embedded search box and sort of made it more their own. And that makes it a little bit harder for us to support and do things around that because local code can change the scope of the way that something works. But it's kind of great because it works better for the institution. So what we're trying to do is more and more often take those ideas that we see out in the Galileo community, ideas that are coming from you all, and translate them into development so that you don't really have to hack Galileo, if you will. You can use the existing administrative functionality to make Galileo do what you want and need it to do, whether you be currently a Galileo administrator for your institution and forthcoming if you're a Galileo user. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we have coming up as well. So look forward to chatting with you all about what we have. And I'll also give you some time at the end of the session to give us some feedback and some ideas that you may have on how we might better make Galileo a personalized experience. So I'm going to go ahead, scroll right along here. Our agenda, I'm going to take a look at our spotlight and featured resources. This was the first major step that we took toward giving institutions the ability to customize their Galileo portal site in a long time, probably since the GLRI introduction, the Galileo Local Resource Integration. I'll also talk about that. I'm going to talk about Bento customization, what's available to add, and then we'll also talk about do-it-yourself bentos and sort of the future also later on of bento customization. I'll talk a little bit about the embedded search box and talk about its availability and talk a little bit about how some of our institutions have used it. And another new functionality that I really want to emphasize is the ability that you have now in Galileo admin to add subjects and tags to your Galileo resources. And this is something I actually do quite a lot of. You can now add keyword tags and subjects, the subjects that are in Galileo, you can add them to your own resources if you find that they're deficient, and it makes that search that we've spent a lot of time redesigning much more powerful. So we want to dig into that piece as well. So those are the things we're going to cover, and then some other things probably along the way. And as Joy said, please feel free to go ahead and add your questions anytime. I may not respond to them immediately, but I'm going to pause periodically and let Joy shoot me any questions that happen to appear in the chat in the moment. I want to just mention also, I sort of took the fun tack with this, and then I left Mike White with the hard work. I have an opportunity here to show off some of the really cool things our institutions are doing with the new functionality that we've added to Galileo. But Mike is going to go with you a little bit deeper. He's going to present a session tomorrow from 1 to 1:50 called Take the Wheel or Taking the Wheel, Customizing Galileo at Your Institution. I'm going to be focusing today on the front end, as I mentioned, and Mike will be focusing more on actually doing these tasks in Galileo admin. At the end of the session also, we'll be highlighting some training that Mike is going to be offering. Mike is going to do a Galileo Admin 1 training on the fly for those of you who may be brand new to these ideas, so that you can quickly register for and get an opportunity to participate in some training directly with Mike. And we'll share that date and time at the end of this session, and there'll also be a registration link there for that. So I just wanted to talk a minute about the spotlight and featured resources area. We wanted to create an opportunity for libraries and our other participating institutions and schools to add the resources they would like to see on their Galileo front page put their most functional, most important resources front and center on their site. And I love what they did at Chattahoochee Technical College. They've taken several, I think all of the databases here are actually databases they purchased locally. None of them, I believe, are Galileo core. They've also featured a link out to collection highlights, some of their featured material, ebooks and other content. And they've done some really nice graphic work on that. And then they have library guides, direct link out to their local LibGuides. And that's something that we've talked about too. We want to, at some point, build more integration in some way, shape, or form. We don't know what that's going to look like of LibGuides into the Galileo platform, but currently the Spotlight has provided the opportunity for Chattahoochee Tech, in this case, to put a link out. And I encourage you to think flexibly about how you use the Spotlight. It doesn't necessarily have to be library. If you want to provide a direct link to a tutoring center on campus or another helpful department to students that has basic information that they need. That's a great way to use the Spotlight. We didn't want to be oppressive in the way we presented the Spotlight to our libraries. We wanted this to be your space. Obviously, you want to do what's reasonable and what makes sense with it. But we wanted it to be your space to add resources, whether those be human resources, departmental resources, or library resources that help your users to meet their needs. So really nice example, I think, there from Chattahoochee Tech. I also wanted to share an example from a public library. This is another fun example of public library here using the Spotlight. Sarah Hightower Regional Library purchases Chilton Library on their own and the Weiss Financial Ratings, and those are really important databases for them. So they've added them to their sort of grown-up view featured resources there in their Spotlight. Now, the other thing with that, when it comes to K-12 and our public libraries, where you have multiple views, you can add featured resources in that Spotlight representative for each view. So for example, Sarah Hightower, if they wanted to add a link to a local ebook resource for kids on their elementary view, they can absolutely do that. So they have flexibility across those 4 different views. You see here the full view, but they could also modify that elementary view if they so desired. So all of the views in the Spotlight are modifiable. Now, we absolutely understand that the challenge this presents to our K-12 schools right now, and that you would have to have some agreement across the school system in order to update the Spotlight area. But I think those kinds of conversations are good, and I think serving your schools well with that type of communication could be really important to how Galileo is viewed and how it's seen across your different schools. So I encourage you to have those conversations internally and to make this work for you as much as you can. I wanted to stress, again, I won't be spending a lot of time on the administrative side of this, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that this is not particularly difficult. Once you have a bit of training and you can log into the Galileo administrative area, then these functions are pretty simple and straightforward. We're actually working to make them even less difficult and more straightforward. You see that each of the items here for Chattahoochee Tech has a position, and then they're able to upload an image. That image upload is really flexible. There aren't a lot of restrictions on the size of image that you can upload. It automatically resizes it for you when you put it in. Our developers did a great job on that. And then you can put in your edit information, and you put in your URL and your other information and your description, which can all be custom. And you save it, and you've got a custom item in your Spotlight. So it's very easy to do. We want to make this easier, as I mentioned, and one of the things we've done, some of you who may have used Bento previously, you can actually drag and drop the order of your bentos, which is nice. We're going to hopefully add that for the Spotlight area soon as well, so that you can drag and drop these into the positions you want, not just have to make sure you indicate a position when you first create it. So I want to mention Galileo local resource integration. Again, I want to say this has been such a good opportunity to look at what some of our schools have done. And I was at the GLMA Summer Institute recently, and I had known just from communications we had with them that their school library staff were reaching out to us frequently about Galileo local resource integration. And I find Galileo Local Resource Integration a very powerful tool that we offer. It gives libraries the opportunity to include their local resources in Galileo. And this does not, again, have to be limited to things that are just subscription resources that you purchase. I add new things to Galileo fairly frequently using this. For example, I recently added a whole slate of GPB, Georgia Public Broadcasting materials to Galileo for K-12 so that those items are in there. But you can also add things locally also. And this is an example for Decatur City Schools. Someone came to talk to me from Decatur City Schools while I was at GLMA and said they were just so thrilled now that so much more of their content was available in Galileo. The things that they purchase at the district level are all now added, and it's made it much easier for their students to find this. And it's also really important because anything that's maintained and purchased at the district level for our schools or public libraries or our academic institutions can also be added to, in most cases, our discovery service so that you can find it in the Galileo search as well. And the results will also be integrated into the Bento. So it all kind of ties together to make the Galileo portal a more powerful tool. So you see here, just as an example, Decatur City Schools actually approached this a couple of different ways. They've used some institutional branding provided by your institution. You can also add an institution level logo if you want, but they've also added the Gale in context. They've just added a Gale logo there. You have options and flexibility, and that's one reason I captured this particular screen from Decatur City Schools, because the images with the branding you can do in the Galileo local resource integration. You can do a local logo for your school. You can do just a simple provided by your institution as they've done here, or you can do the vendor logo, because that sometimes helps users to find what they're looking for. So just wanted to point that out as an example of how an institution has used GLRI. Another thing that's advantageous about adding things to the Galileo local resource integration is it creates that persistent Galileo Express link for users. You see that we also have done some development. We've added an image now. If you click on that little link image at the end of a resource, it will open up a Galileo Express link for you. And that allows you to link out to that item directly from another web page without having to go through the Galileo portal. If a user is on site, they'll go right in. If they're off campus or off site, they'll just be prompted for their login to Galileo, whether it be Open Athens or their Galileo password. So that's another piece of the value of adding things to Galileo locally. Also, it kind of turns some of the work over to Galileo, in that we maintain the back end of this for you if we need to. Obviously, you can do this yourself. This is a self-service piece. But also, if any authentication issues are identified at the vendor level and we need to repair them, we can repair them easily and quickly across our institutions versus you having to dig it out and repair it. Not that we're committed to doing that all the time, but at the same time, sometimes we can fix things more quickly if we know what you have access to and what it's doing. It makes testing a lot easier for us too. So a bit on GLRI. Again, it's pretty easy. I'm not going to say that GLRI is super simple, because there are some pieces of it where you really have to think through the addition of new resources in the Galileo backend. Mike provides, as I mentioned, great training on that. But it's a matter of either finding an existing record and copying it and editing it. When you edit it, you have to make sure that you put your institutional information, your link into that new record in the back end so that it works properly. If there isn't a record found for an item, you can create a new record. I've done that recently. I mentioned I added the GPB material to the Galileo core for K-12, and I had to make sure that it wasn't there, and then I could add it anew. And again, it's important to be sure to edit with the accurate information, and Mike will go into greater depth with that in the Galileo local resource integration training that he does, but making sure you have the right institution information and the right link are key to successfully adding a resource in GLRI. I say all this to encourage you to explore this, to take the training if you haven't already, and to really work to do this. And this is, again, showing screens, creating a new resource is super easy. So we matter just be creating one fresh, and it's not difficult to do. I want to just point out also, just kind of reiterate some things here, that on Spotlight or on GLRI, it's flexible. It can be a link to any resource needed by your community. It doesn't have to be with GLRI or Spotlight, a traditional library database, some things that have come up, guides, just general web pages, a link out to a tutoring center, other free online resources. And we've done some really cool things with express links as well. Since Galileo express links require authentication, one of the neat things that we've done, for example, we've had one of our academic institutions that had a limited license PDF of an ebook that they needed to make available to their students. We were able to put a link into Galileo directly to that, but that link that we created, we were able to force authentication to that link and sort of alleviate that problem to accessing a PDF. We had another institution that had some video content that they were just sort of hosting on their Google Drive locally, and we're able to create links out to that required authentication also. The cool thing too that we've done as a revision to GLRI is you can now set up something so that it does not require any authentication at all. So if you're linking out to a free resource, you can make sure that that resource doesn't require any authentication when people use that express link. So we've done some things to make Galileo local resource integration a lot more flexible, and we want to encourage its flexible uses. We've been able to use it creatively in several situations to improve access or to create an authentication opportunity where one didn't exist. I'm pretty far in now, and I see that the chat has been pretty active. I'm going to have just take a quick pause, Joy, and see if there are any questions I can answer right now.
Actually, no questions in the chat. I was typing things and adding documents, but no questions just yet.
Okay, well, thanks. Well, again, I encourage you, if you have questions as I go through, don't hesitate to add them to the chat, and Joy will, I'll pause frequently and make sure that Joy gets those to me. So again, going back to the whole idea of adding resources in GLRI, this is just a screen capture of adding JSTOR, which is a commonly purchased local resource that you can add. I did want to give a heads up, and I think it's really important for libraries to know. When you purchase content locally, I think it's really advantageous, first of all, to add it to Galileo, but let us know whenever you add new licensed databases for schools at the district level, for libraries, public libraries. Anytime you add resources, try to let us know if you add licensed database content, because we can usually activate that content in your Galileo search results through your EBSCO discovery service, so that we're providing yet another access point for that content. So again, this is my opportunity to strongly encourage you to add your content to Galileo local resource integration and to discovery, so users can find it using that Galileo search. They can find it using the Bento search. They can find it using the embedded search box. It gives another means to find the content that you're out there spending at your institution for. And to do that, always make sure to stress this as well. Love it when I get emails directly, but when you have issues or you need to add content to GLRI, or you want to ask questions about what we can do there, if you want to add an item to discovery, our for technical issues support form, just submit that and we'll be glad to work with you to do what we need to get the content into Galileo as far as we can. Did you say something, Joy? Sorry, I feel like I might have cut you off. Nope. Okay. So Bento customization. Again, this is a functionality that we are continuing to think about growing and expanding, but I think it's important for you all to know that you can institutionally at the present add your own Bento. So you see this nice customized Bento. I was showing this to Joe. I think this is the cutest Bento box I've ever seen. But you can add a Bento that searches specific resources, and I'll show some examples of that. You can add a Bento that searches based on available metadata. And you can utilize available custom bentos. The development team and Mike White, I have to give Mike good credit on this. I just looked at this yesterday while I was prepping for this session. And between Mike and the development team and Josh on our development team, we've been thinking through what sort of default available bentos we can add. And I was amazed when I went to look at the list yesterday, and I have the list, most of the list here for you today in a minute. So we have some custom bentos that you can just go in and drag into your available bentos and activate them, put a position on them, and be ready to go. There are things like the research starters. If you've ever noticed the research starter articles that come up when you do a search in the EBSCO Discovery Service, there's now a bento just for those. Also, we've added a bento. I loved working with Jeff Gallant on this, and I think Jeff is very pleased that we've added both a Georgia Knowledge Repository and an Affordable Learning Georgia bento that you can add. The Affordable Learning Georgia bento keys on the EBSCO Discovery Services information that we have from the Georgia Learning Materials, the Open Learning Materials database. So all those materials that are in the Open Learning materials from ALG can be searched through this bento, and we've deployed it for a couple of institutions. It's pretty cool. So faculty can find those items a lot easier. And you can also modify your bento order easily using the GALILEO admin piece. This is an example. This is the GALILEO Open Learning Materials bento. Georgia Highlands College was one of the first ones to, I shared this proof of concept in a Regents Academic Committee on Libraries meeting, and I heard from them in short order, hey, we want to do this, which was awesome. So we added this for Georgia Highlands. And as you can see, I did a search on calculus, and there are a number of calculus textbooks and other calculus learning materials that have been added for through the ALG grants program. And those items appear in that GALILEO Open Learning Materials bento. So great job at Georgia Highlands adding that. Also, Gwinnett Technical College was taking a look with them this week and getting some great ideas from everyone that participates. George was formerly a member of our GALILEO Development Advisory Committee and continues to send me great ideas for how we can improve the bento box search all the time. She's always thinking through this, and I love how they've utilized it here at Gwinnett Technical College. You see that one of the things that they did is you can search the GALILEO database list in the bento. And we actually really like that at GALILEO because it lets us find databases quickly when we're looking for them. Less so in our institutions. You may not love that front and center. They've included, I believe, the database search here, but it doesn't necessarily come up first in the results bento here for Gwinnett Tech. You see magazines, scholarly articles, and they've added a Galen context opposing viewpoints, a database specific bento box here in the Gwinnett Tech search. So some nice work there at Gwinnett Tech. And yet again, it's pretty simple, even simpler to move your bentos around. This is on the left-hand side, you have your visible bentos, and you can drag them and drop them into the position that you want here on the screen in GALILEO admin. And just again, examples of some of the new hidden bentos that one can add, and it's simply a matter of drag, drop, and save if you want to add these to your bento searches. And again, pointing out that public libraries and K-12 schools, you can do these on a per view basis. For our academic institutions, you just have the one view, but you can add it. But we have the GALILEO Open Learning Materials, the Georgia Knowledge Repository, audio, conference materials, dissertations, maps, music scores, the aforementioned research starters, which I think is a really neat one to have added. Good job with the team on that. We had to do some technical work working backward with EBSCO to do that, reviews, trade publications, and videos. Now, these are only, as I always say, these types of things are as good as the metadata that represents them. Again, they're never going to be perfect, but it does make it a lot easier for students to find a material type when they're looking for, or they're prescribed to search for a specific material type.
Hey, Russell, we did have
Yeah.
a question about bento before
Sure.
you leave the space. Wendy asked, Wilma, are you still working on getting refined results into the bento results pages?
Absolutely. And we will speak to that right near the end of the presentation, Wendy. And again, I'll make sure everybody has an opportunity to share any ideas they have beyond the sort of limiters that we've recently proposed. But absolutely, that's something that we are prioritizing probably as priority one for the December Galileo release. And certainly we'll talk more about that. Yeah, great question. Any other questions?
That's it for now.
Thank you, Wendy. Great question. I just want to again show another example. One of the most common databases that our libraries have asked for. I know video content is expensive, it's hard to come by, and you want to highlight it. Young Harris was one of the first to ask us about highlighting their films on demand database. So I searched just simply for nursing films here, and I've got their films on demand record right there. Their bento box comes up so that they can quickly and easily surface that films on demand content using the bento. Do want to mention the Galileo embedded search box, and this is another area where we have, I think, some unique ideas and possibilities for the future, and where we want to get some feedback. Right now, the Galileo embedded search box is the code is fairly locked down. As I mentioned earlier, the code can be manipulated locally, but it makes it harder for Galileo staff to support that. So ultimately, we would like to do something with this. One of the nice things, again, one of the new defaults we're adding, going back to Wendy's question about bento filters, another common question we get is, can we have it so that it defaults to the classic search? And it looks like the folks at UNG, through capturing the classic default bento search box, Galileo embedded search box, have done that. So this defaults to the classic search, it looks like, on their page. So you can capture the search box with either bento as the default or classic as the default, but we're going to make it so that in the not too distant future, users can make that choice on an individual basis. You can choose bento or classic at the user level. I want to make sure that everyone is aware of this as well. You can add tags or subjects to your databases. And one of the things that I think we've all struggled with a bit, we've made some serious improvements to the Galileo database search along the way. The development team has improved the way it handles metadata and handles prioritizing search results, and it has gotten a lot better since we released way back in July of 2020. So great work there. But one of the things that we wanted to do was make it so that libraries can begin to customize their own metadata within their databases so that you can make it work for you. And I've also been manipulating this a bit on my end. I've added a lot of tags behind the scenes to Galileo Core. I always joke that adding tags and adding subjects to Galileo Core materials is something I'll do on Friday afternoon at 4:30 when I've kind of finished my last major task of the week. If I have, I will sit down and add some tags because it's fun, it's easy, and it improves the entirety of the search. But you can also add tags locally to your databases. So what I've done, this is an example. I had got an email from a faculty member at one of our technical colleges. And this particular faculty member let me know that she missed having the kids' views in Galileo. Even though she's at a technical college institution, she valued those kids' views because she was often working with students who were coming just straight out of high school. And so she could take them to the high school view or the middle school view in some cases and get them to research resources that they were a little bit more comfortable using early on in the process. So when those views went away, she was not as adept at being able to do that. So I came up with the idea, well, we can do this with tagging. So what I did is I went through and I tagged every resource that K-12 and technical colleges had in common with the tag 101 or the tag getting started. And I added some other things along the way as well, just so that I could get a representative list of databases that when one searches on that keyword or tag will help them to get started with research. So there's there's secondary resources like Funk and Wagnalls. There's ProQuest One literature, where a lot of students in first and second year technical college are taking first and second year English. So you want to get them to that literature. stuff. And then ebooks, the community college collection. So anything that I found that where there were commonalities, I tagged it to make it easier for that faculty member to present to her students. And while it wasn't the solution she was absolutely looking for, it did serve the purpose. So we were able to solve that problem with some simple tagging. So I've also tagged things in Galileo, again, Galileo Core. I've tagged things that have materials in foreign languages. I've tagged things that have lexile limiters, or you search lexile. When you just do a general Galileo database search, you'll find most of the databases that, or not, if not all the databases that provide a lexile limiter in their search. So we've tried to make things more discoverable through subjects and tags. So again, feel free to take advantage of that locally, and I'll show you just quickly. This is also another thing we've done with this. This is the primary search database. These tags are also now clickable. You see, I added the 101 tag and the getting started tag, which you'll also see here. These are all me: lexile, lexile level, lexile range, lexile search. I try to think like a cataloger when I add tags, or maybe not, because catalogers would just put 2 or 3 subjects. But in any case, trying to make it so that we make this search more powerful, and you can certainly do that locally as well. And just to show you, this is super easy to do. I've opened up the database record. I did this for Columbus Technical College. This is where I was having to be working on something in there anyway to do the screen grab. And you see this, to add additional keywords, is just as simple as listing them. It tells you exactly how to do separate keywords by placing each one on a new line. And you can just go down the page and add keywords to a database record until your heart is content for your allocated resources. So encourage you to spend time doing that. Again, I know when you find the time. I try to do it again when I find myself with 30 minutes between meetings, or 30 minutes before the end of the day on Friday. It's something that I try to squeeze in some tagging. So Joy, I want to take a pause here. I see a couple of more comments may have come in on the chat, and just want to make sure that we're answering any questions. Anything?
Hold on. Yeah. So someone was asking, I was about to answer it. Someone was asking if the classic search will always be around. Is the Bento search like an overlay of the classic search?
It is. So just to give a brief bit of technical information about that, they search the same index. To create the Bento search, we basically connect to the same index via an API. And that lets us be in control of how that data comes back into the Galileo portal in the Bento search. The classic search is the same index. And no, we will never take the classic search option away. There are people who prefer that mode of searching for good reasons. There are lots of ways that you can apply filters and limits in that EBSCO environment. There are also features and functions that EBSCO provides in that environment that, while we're looking to better interlink those into Bento, and that's part of what we'll do as we continue to work on the Bento search in the coming years, there are features and functionality that we may never be able to add to the Bento environment. So we will never have that classic environment go away. Now, it is going to change. We will eventually implement the new EBSCO Discovery Service platform, which is available now. We are waiting for EBSCO to improve that platform so that it better meets our needs. The advanced search isn't where it needs to be yet, and there's some other technical issues with that new EBSCO Discovery Search and EBSCO platform that we're not thrilled with yet. I think it's ultimately going to be very good. It's got some really good features and functionality too. But that will be the major change that you see coming with that classic search. I don't see us deviating from having that classic search available to our users ever. Just to put a very blunt point on that, it's always going to be there. Okay. Any other questions, Joy?
No, Mike wrote some things that were an explanation, and then Adam, who asked the question, said that is more clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Mike. Okay. Yeah, Mike, that is a good point. Yeah, there are some, and there will continue to be added some new Bento boxes. I mentioned this in my time briefly yesterday, speaking to the larger group, that we will connect to the Digital Library of Georgia eventually directly. And there's the opportunity to connect to other sources of data out there, like the Digital Public Library of America. There are some APIs out to primary resources that we can utilize to improve those results. And we'll certainly continue to explore how we can add more content. We don't want to overwhelm people with content in the Bento search, but we want to be able to have some independent streams, independent of EDS as well, that as Mike points out, that can add value. Thanks for that, Mike, and good question, Adam. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is give people an opportunity, and I'm going to actually just kind of go through what I have here to introduce this concept and to generate some ideas and to throw out some ideas that we have. And then I'm going to come back so that I can actually see the chat and interact with you all out of the slide presentation. But as a Hackers Unite, what's next? So we have some ideas that are on the table. Users can choose or create their own bentos. So you saw those sort of pre-made bentos that we have. We'll be working on finding a way to make those available so that end users can add them to their search results if they want in the bento. More Galileo interoperability with other tools. I mentioned that earlier in the presentation, things like libguides. We have talked about the concept, and this is, again, high-level concept. We haven't really put much time, too much time or energy thinking into just yet, but we talked about having a search box generator to make it easier to generate a search box with local info or local links or local color. So you could choose colors so that you aren't stuck with the colors that Galileo uses in our code for the search box, ways to make it more customized and more localized. Persistent links to bento search results. That's a big one. And Wendy asked earlier, this is sort of independent of things that you can customize. Well, we'll be adding filters in the December release to the bento box so that you can filter on date within a bento. You can filter on material type even further within a bento or source or database. So all things that we are thinking about. Some of these were more firm than others on adding, but I take a pause here. And again, with the idea of customization and localization and personalization even in mind, what ideas do you all have, or what questions do you have about our direction as well? So I'm going to come out of the presentation mode here so that I can actually see and interact in the chat, but wondering what thoughts you all have. I'm going to open up the chat here. Thoughts, ideas, questions?
I've also allowed everyone to be able to unmute themselves if they want to ask the question aloud.
I hate typing, so that's all cool too. Yeah, feel free to offer a raised hand and we'll be glad to hear any comments or questions. Adam, go ahead, please.
Yes, so I just noticed this recently because I also work with interlibrary loan, and I'm not sure if I'm sure other people do this as well in terms of like students and things like that. And one of the things that I do is I just take the full citation that I'm given to see if we have it, and I paste it into the bento box or the bento search and see if we actually have that article. And I noticed sometimes we didn't have the article, and I was like, oh, well, I will have to get that through interlibrary loan. And then I started just cutting the citation in half where it was just the author and title, and some results did come up. So if students are also doing that whole thing where they're given a citation and they just copy and paste it right into the bento, I'm not sure if it's fully finding it. So that's more of not like a feature request, just something that I noticed.
Sure, that is an interesting thing, and we're constantly working on things like that on the development side, and I'll be sure that the development team hears about that. I have noticed that too, Adam. I think it can be just like what you talked about. I think I always kind of scale back my search when I'm searching for an item in the bento and just have the title, maybe versus the whole citation. It's yeah, we can certainly look at that, how that search is handled and think about how that might be improved or work better. But I, as a former interlibrary loan person myself, I would most likely use the classic search when doing interlibrary loan work, and I think that could be a good recommendation. And I will say this: the bento search, it serves its purpose, but it was never intended to solve every problem in the search domain. It is another piece.
I think if students start using it more, and I've started using it as my default almost, just because I like the way it puts everything together. So
right.
I think if students use it more and more, they may not even use Classic, or it depends. Some institutions may have that as set as the default, stuff like that. So just wanted to share that. Not an issue, but something
Sure.
that.
No, I think it's really good for us to know. I mean, we can always look at how it handles things better. And again, it's running against the same EDS index. So we'll have to, Mike makes the comment here, doing that should work with the classic search. EBSCO accommodates for that. Yeah. It's interesting that we're just using a different search appliance, but we'll do some analysis and see what we can come up with. But I appreciate the comment. And you know, if your point is taken too, that, hey, if more people are using this, they may be using it for more reasons. Or maybe on the student side, they're failing to get exactly what they want. We need to account for that. So thanks for sharing that.
Cool, thank you.
Other comments, ideas? That's great. We can always take these things back to the development block and definitely take a long look at them. That's part of what we do. Other questions, comments? Seamus, do you want to share something?
Oh, I just thought that might that last question might blend in with what Wendy was asking about, sort of our plans to refine Bento results. But there might be some avenues for, say, someone that's actually looking for academic articles that, like, you know, if we know that they're on a singular like Bento, you know, looking at that search, there might be places that we can say, like, you know, try to make sure that a citation search works in that sense, as opposed to just like a general Bento across multiple databases where we may want a different strategy kind of thing. So you know, yeah.
That's a good point. That this might be also something that we can, you know, more directly provide search advice. And at some point, that's something that, Adam, that we've talked a lot about too, is the whole concept of how can we look at what's being entered into the search. And this is always challenging. And can you do it with artificial intelligence? And it's one of those long-term thinking things that we put our heads around from time to time, is can we, you know, make a recommendation based on a failed search and say, hey, try this in Classic versus Bento, maybe you get results. That's another thought. That's great. Hopefully we'll be able to do something like that someday. Josh?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in an ideal world, it might be a little placard that appears at the top of your search results. If you, just like we already have for when you type in the exact title of a journal, it'll say, are you looking for the journal XYZ on top of all of your Bento, you know, not within one Bento, but at the top of the search results. In an ideal world, we'd have something like that for an exact article match if you pasted in something that looked like a citation or a DOI, but we're a ways away from having that.
Yeah, and Wendy's makes a good comment. We don't really need to organize by type of resource, but by currency, full text access, and excluding certain types of resources. This is interesting because Wendy, I mentioned Deb George often sends some great ideas along the way, and we had a good discussion just this week about limiting by full text. Sorry, there's more to unpack there, but just that's fresh in my mind. And I introduced it to this group. You know, right now there's a full text limiter before you search, but it might be nice to also, after you search in Bento, have full text be one of the filters, because you may want to see the broader list, and then you may want to narrow it once you've got results. You know, I different people search different ways. I tend to be a go big and then refine person, and some people are go tiny and then walk it back. Yeah. Oh, and Deb is here. Hey, I invoked your name. But yes, absolutely. Those are things that we can look at doing. And then also, just to address all of this, organized by type of resource, by currency. Certainly a date limit is priority, pretty much number one for me, and Bento filters. But yes, understood. Yep. Understood. Yep. So yeah, that's feedback I'll be sharing with the development team, Deb, that I haven't even had a chance to process much myself, but I brought it up, didn't I? Thanks, y'all. Other questions, comments, ideas? This is all great. we've talked a lot about Bento, but have about 5 minutes if there are other topics outside the Bento realm. Anything, I'll just ask this, is there anything I've shared today that you're excited to maybe go out there and try? I plan to keep on tagging resources. Well, while you all are thinking, I'm going to go ahead and just share my slides just for 2 more seconds so I can share a couple more things with you, just so I get to everything. And that is, again, just wanted to remind you all again, if you came in late, Mike White is doing a session on tomorrow from 1 to 1:50 called Taking the Wheel, Customizing Galileo at Your Institution. While I share just a little bit of what's going on in the back end with this, Mike is going to share in greater depth actually how to do some of these things in Galileo admin. So this could be just some general instruction for those of you who haven't done this yet. It could be a good refresher for those of you who have. And also, one thing we do ask people to do is before you delve into Galileo admin, we try to make sure that everyone has at least had video training, but we're going to offer on July 12th at 10 o'clock a 1.5 hour session on Galileo admin 1. And as you can see, this covers Spotlight, institutional information, reports. There are also some reports in the Galileo backend that can be really helpful. We've added every year, everyone needs their serials report. You ask, a lot of you will ask us for that, but we've made it so that you can generate that report in Galileo admin, that list of all the databases and total numbers of publications for your reporting that you do up to national organizations can be generated simply in Galileo admin now. The dev team did a great job of creating that report. So those are that's available on July 12th at 10 o'clock. And I have the registration link, and Joy will share the slides out, but you can also have our little submit a ticket. If you want to submit a ticket to us, Mike can get you in and get you registered. Also, Mike does offer a Galileo admin 2, and we can offer that either via video. We can send you a video link and then set up everything that you need to go into the Galileo admin 2 training. We'd sort of do that situationally for those that have already had Galileo admin 1 and who want to be advanced users and use the Galileo local resource integration. So do let us know if you're interested in that second piece there, kind of going beyond that Galileo admin 1. And we sort of do that in a needs-based way, and we can set it up so that you can get video training. We have done some one-on-one training when we have time and availability. But we're always willing to get people up to speed on this important Galileo functionality. And I just want to say thank you and address any remaining questions. I have changed I used to have my burning questions was fire, but now I have moved to a pepper and tomato for summer. And so I welcome any final burning questions in the 2 minutes that we have left. And I do want to thank you all so much for attending. I hope it was enjoyable and valuable to you. And oh, good. I got a comment from someone on tagging. Let's see. Going to try tagging ebook collections to improve search results. Yeah, that was your second question this week. I was thinking about that actually. My dream is to allow searching across multiple databases, but with a single subject area, such as literature or psychology or theology. I hope that we might be able to do that with the next phase of the Bento search. Actually, we might be able to make subject a limiter within a single Bento search so that you can do that. And then also tagging can help with that. Yep. Yeah, there's certainly ways that you can tag to make that database search very powerful. Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing those things. And again, I want to thank you all so much. And we look forward to hearing from you about the training opportunities that we are going to provide. And we hope that we see a big uptake in those of you customizing your Galileo experience. Thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your conference and a wonderful day.
Thank you all. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.